Hey everybody, it's George with GLG Homes. And so I'm driving around today. I was running a couple of errands and I was noticing something at first it didn't click and then it started to. And let me just pull over here for a second. So one of the things that I'm seeing are the number of houses in my area of Connecticut that are starting to get those notices on the window. Those notices are usually an indication of a house going to auction, foreclosure, you name it. That's not a big deal. That's nothing new. And it certainly is not because of what we've just been through with COVID and the massive amount of people applying for unemployment. It takes much longer for foreclosures to come to market than a couple of months. Just to give you an example, here in Connecticut, the average foreclosure from point of notification between the bank and the owner to the time when it hits the market through the MLS can be anywhere between 12 and 15 months. Some will go as quick as 6 to 9, but most are going to be around that 1 year mark. So the notices that we're seeing aren't, because of the recent economic condition, but what they are an indication of is the fact that the government is probably starting to release the foreclosure process again. And if you recall, there was a pause on that when we entered into early March, when we entered into the COVID concern. So March, April, May, June, we're at the point where the 90-day pause is now getting released. So I'm seeing more and more of these permits, the notices, etc., going to windows. And I just drove by a few houses that those were not on a week ago. So if you're an investor and you're thinking about buying a foreclosed home, which can be a great deal, I mean, we buy them, they're fine. Just keep in mind one thing, that most new foreclosure listings, those are going to be houses that are listed by the government at about 70% of market value, which is usually the starting point for most investors that are looking to keep that 30% gross margin on their ARV. I've seen a lot of investors lately thinning that number down. So they're going from a 30% gross to 20. I know some guys are even going 15% gross, which means your net, depending upon how good you are, your net is going to be somewhere between 7 to 9%. And if you're going 15% gross, you could be as low as 5% net. That's putting a lot of risk on a very thin margin out of the gate. Deals can get down to being 5 or 7% net after you've completed the transaction and sold the property, and that's usually an indication of your holding period was longer, maybe you had a screw up in the renovation that took more money, whatever. But if you start out with a 5 to 7% net as your plan, man, that just makes it a little bit tight. Okay, so again, if you're an investor in the market and you're looking at foreclosed homes, be prepared, because I think we're going to start to see a whole bunch of them coming on the market because that pause period is over. But at the same time, if you're an investor and you're thinking about getting into this, or you're a newer investor and you're thinking about getting into it, a foreclosed house can be a great opportunity. Just remember that initial price is usually about 70%, maybe 75% of market value. And guess what? Lately, more and more, because it's been such a good market for sellers, more and more investors have been buying foreclosed properties at or above that listed price, which again is putting you into the pressure on that margin. So again, it's George at GLG Homes, just out looking around. I noticed this was coming up again. We'll be back in buying, of course, but and we haven't stopped, but if you're getting into it, just pay attention and get ready, because I think we're going to see a whole release of foreclosed homes coming up. Probably take 1 to 2 months, and then you're going to see more of them coming on. And then unfortunately, due to what just took place with COVID, I would say early Q1 of 2021, don't be surprised if you see a bunch of foreclosed homes on the market, which is going to shift things, price values and everything else. All right, everybody, have a great afternoon. Enjoy the weather. Man, this is a beautiful day outside. We'll see you.